And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode number 142. Well, it's been a while since we did an episode, and it's been quite a while since we did a bed episode of Year of the Aerostar, although there is precedent for that. I am a little under the weather right now, and I thought what better to do while I'm laid up anyways than talk about a Ford Aerostar with a microphone and a camera. So here we are. Good excuse to do it, and maybe if I'm lucky and my stamina holds out, we can record a few of these and sort of get back on the bandwagon, as it were. Very excited to be back, so I suppose we should just get right into it, huh? So here we have a 1996 Ford Aerostar cargo minivan, listed for $2,500 in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. What a great name, Shepherdsville, Kentucky. Kentucky, one of the funny state abbreviations, KY, but it's one of the only K states I suppose there is. I don't know. We won't go down that rabbit hole right now. Anyways, Shepherdsville, Kentucky. Sounds like a nice place, huh? Now, I will say, to get distracted already, there has been a kind of a dearth of Aerostardom in my neck of the woods, which is sort of upstate New York generally. There was one very close by. I did try to buy it, of course, because it was like a running, driving Aerostar that was part of a Lemons race, and it was like, I think he was asking $600 or $800 for it, and it was an extended version with both bumpers. I don't even know if I screen grabbed it or what, but I have had a go at one recently. Didn't get sold within a day. I mean, it was posted late at night. I messaged him that night, and the next day it was gone. So obviously, I think the lack of Aerostars online probably is just because they're getting scooped up as soon as they go. There's another one out in Massachusetts recently. Again, another $800 extended. Would have been a perfect to snap the bumpers off of it and put it on red velvet. So it's not for lack of trying, and behind the scenes there's always things going on. However, we have some constraints here, and hopefully in my janky life I've tried to be quite apologetic about, and not in a purely symbolic way. Like I really am chomping at the bit to sort of document more and shoot more videos and yada yada yada. You get the idea. Let's talk about this van. Okay, about this vehicle. Driven 146,237 miles. Very specific. An automatic transmission. The exterior color is blue. The interior color is blue. The fuel type is gasoline. 15 city, 21 highway for a combined 17. And the vehicle is paid off with a clean title. Okay, we'll get into the pictures. Let's read the description. 1996 Ford Aerostar. V6 auto rear-wheel drive pimp mobile. And we'll talk about that word. It's a pimp mobile, I guess. Rust-free, runs and drives good. Battery is getting weak. Tires need balanced. The tires need balanced, just so you know. No rear seats. Okay, tells us everything we need to know. I suppose tires need balancing or tires need to be balanced is how I would phrase that, but I get the point. I understand what's going on. Heat works, radio works. It's a sick van. Gonna post it for this week and this week only to see what I get offered. Trades only for vehicles. Looking for manual trucks, manual Honda Civics, old school cars, G-bodies and whatnot. IDC, I don't care if they need work, just need to start up and move under their own power. If I don't get good offers this week, I will end up keeping it. Title in my name, all caps. Okay, a lot to go through here before we actually get to the van itself. I mean, kind of cool taste, manual trucks. I wonder if they would trade for a manual Aerostar. I mean, if they had a manual Aerostar, then their troubles would be over, So first, it seems like a typo that they say "an" instead of "and," but I'm realizing it's just like an abbreviation. Like when I'm texting a lot, I'll say implied apostrophe "em," like "em," which is short for them. So I actually like this because it's very consistent. They use it 3 times, this week and this week only. Like See, this is my funny thing, because I have to backtrack and say this year of the Aerostar is just as much a critique and review and sort of philosophical stumbling around of marketplace and Craigslist and classifieds culture and linguistics as much as it is the Aerostar. I always have to give that proviso to people, because you just see, like, you know, it's a to beat you over the head with it, it's really a touchstone of our culture and society in general. And I always thought Craigslist, I was just talking to my good buddy G6 about Craigslist, and those were the days. And I always said Craigslist was like the best possible form of capitalism, where it was like everything's stripped down, you can barter, you can buy and sell, there's no sales tax, it's just like you and another person making a transaction, you know, and you get some good people that are good and honest, you get some people that are not so good and honest. It's hard to take the human element out of any system. But within I guess marketplace now, Facebook marketplace, I hate to even say that, but you know, they do own everything, so I guess might as well give the devil their due. There's a particular culture that develops, and there's a language that develops, and there's just funny little tropes and patterns that you pick up when you just look at hundreds and thousands of vehicles online like I do. Lately, I've been into the first generation Volkswagen New Beetle, you know, from like 97 or 8 till 2005 before they did the facelift. That's what I've been obsessed with lately anyways, besides Aerostars. So they say, instead of writing and, they write and, A-N, this week and this week only, and they say it again. Just need to start up and move under their own powers. I feel like there was one more example of it. Anyways, so as I always say, language is only correct or incorrect insofar as how it communicates effectively, how it gets across the point that one's trying to get across. And in this case, I get it. I get what's going on here. So, interesting listing. I have an issue with the word pimp, like in the 90s and 2000s. And if you ever go and watch any of these documentaries on like Britney Spears or the Lilith Fair Festival, you'll see just like how kind of when you look back on it, you realize there was a lot of like, you know, we had this dream of the 90s, like the Portlandia thing, and how the 90s was so great, and there was like just economic prosperity, and like the internet was brand new and still fresh, and there was all this great. There were some problems in the 90s. Like there were some issues with the 90s. Pimp my ride, like just the use of that phrase generally was such a weird. I know that the word pimp has almost been recontextualized, and it doesn't really have anything to do with sort of prostitution and stuff like that in the context it's been sort of assigned, but it's also kind of impossible to separate it from that original context. Anyways, I always thought when people use the word like it's like a really pimp shirt, I thought it was just like it never like resonated with me as like a positive adjective that you're assigning to something, or a pimp mobile. It's like this is like a person who's, you know, taking advantage of people for money. It's anywho. So, and if we look at the picture to finally actually look at this van now, it's called the Slapper Wagon, which I'm not sure what that means, but I can only imagine if it's a pimp mobile that it has some sort of like innuendo here that they're going for. So this is the Slapper Wagon, I suppose. It's a sick van. I mean, no argument there. Is it a sick van? But the funny thing I thought of when I looked at this, and let's look at some other pictures. I will get into it. It looks like somewhat of a, you know, I'm sure it's a DIY paint job, but it does look like I wonder if it was this light blue to begin with. But I don't think they offer this color in 96. But it looks like it's been pretty thoroughly painted in terms of all your little areas inside. Like a lot of times when you see a DIY paint job, it's just sort of the outside. Once you open the doors, you can see everything. This looks like it's been pretty thoroughly painted, which is interesting. And we have this like light powder blue with these red bumpers, and it looks like they actually did, you know, a pretty halfway decent job. You can make something look good with rattle cans. I don't see now. Is that a little bit of overspray on the headlight bezel there? I can't tell, but from. And again, these aren't the greatest pictures. I wish they, you know, again, this is my pet peeve, but before you post this, just go onto your phone, hit edit photo, and just rotate it 90 degrees so it, it's in the proper, shows the van in the proper orientation. That's all I ask. Okay, so obviously no rear seats. And the funny thing is, it said it was a cargo minivan, which again, I guess de facto it's a cargo minivan, but it's definitely a passenger minivan because it had seats in it and it has the lift gate. Not that you couldn't get a cargo van with the lift gate. That's one of the greatest things about the Aerostar is the sort of modular nature of it. But that was a very rare option. Most people that got the cargo van got the barn doors. And we have a random car door here. Looks like it might be from like a Mustang. Anywho, so, by VIN number, this would probably be classified as a passenger van. The slapper wagon. Okay. So other than the text, and not to critique this van too much, I mean, the mag wheels are, they're fine. I'm a little bit of a purist or traditionalist when it comes to, like, if you do an LS swap on like a 60s Corvette, I like when they at least make the wheels appear to be somewhat period accurate. Obviously they're going to be bigger because they probably got bigger brakes in them in a resto mod. I think the mag wheels kind of work just because they're kind of timeless in a way. They kind of work on anything. And I've seen some Mustang and other wheels on these. Actually, when I saw the powder blue, I was reminded of 2 episodes. I believe episode 13 of Year of the Aerostar was one I tried to buy. I actually had a shout out to my friend Friel, who was down in Virginia, and we almost had a transaction that had Mustang wheels on it and was powder blue. That was a great Aerostar. And then episode 103, I believe, it was in a foreign country. It might have been in Holland or something like that. And that was a really cool custom powder blue. So I think powder blue is an excellent color on the Aerostar. Now the Portofino blue is probably the closest that was offered. I guess in the very early Aerostars, you see some like powder blue. It's probably a slightly different shade than this, and I can't imagine in 96 they were still making it. So I have to imagine this is non-original paint. However, powder blue, very underrated color on an Aerostar. I always talk about the Aerostar wears absolutely any color well, and it's very rare in terms of vehicles that can actually do that can wear. Some vehicles look better in some colors, and I think there's really no bad color on an Aerostar, and that's just another feather in its cap. I also like, and I'm sort of in my head debating if and when I ever get Red Velvet, my 1990 red interior Aerostar up and running, I'm like, am I just going to keep it completely stock? I'm going to have to put new bumpers on anyways. Maybe I paint the bumpers red to match the vehicle, so it's like just monochromatic. But I'm looking at what it would look like I've thought about maybe putting white bumpers on it and doing white wheels. I like the painted bumpers a lot. Part of me always thinks that because you have this, crease in the sort of bottom fifth of the van, let's say, it runs right in line with where the bumpers are. And so part of it just calls out like for this line to be red too. So you'd have a perfect ribbon stripe going around the bottom of the vehicle. And that's what I'm wondering, like they obviously kind of put a lot of time and effort in this vehicle. I'm wondering why they didn't go a little bit further. Like if it's this like pimp mobile, I feel like that connotes some sort of excess or some sort of very sort of big and bold and dramatic style. And this seems actually quite reserved for how, how provocative its name is. All that is to say, I like the powder blue. I like the red bumpers. I think it's a cool look. And I will say, I was just out in the Queen City of Buffalo, New York. We attended a football game out there of a team I won't mention. But this was funny because as we were there, and I am wearing my blue and red as always to try to match the vehicle, we were talking about how it'd be great to have a Aerostar that was like a tailgate specific vehicle where we pull our resources, we buy an Aerostar, I paint a livery on the vehicle, I'll just say a Bills livery. Okay, obviously we're talking about the Bills, who had tough times lately. So when this popped up, it was very funny. Now, I think I actually have seen this before on Marketplace and then it kind of disappeared. Seems like the seller every once in a while toys with selling it. But it was just kind of coincidental because I was like, oh, well, this would be a perfect vehicle as a base to start a Bills, themed Aerostar. And I think it would be so perfect because, like, okay, you're going to drive it 8-10 times a year probably. You're not going to put a ton of miles on it, so you got to get it reliable. Then once you get it reliable, it should stay pretty reliable. And it would be so great because a lot of times they end up taking 2-3 cars to these tailgates, and it's like $60-$70 to park at the stadium now. So if every week you can eliminate one car, say you're at 8 games times $60, that's like what? What's 6 times 8? 448. That's like, $400 or $500 a year that you're saving just in parking. So that could kind of justify over time the cost of having, as I like to game these things out financially or try to create a practical justification for just buying another Aerostar. But this would be a pretty good base for, a Bills van. Now, maybe the colors aren't perfect, but I kind of like variation on a theme. And you could do sort of a retro powder blue and get like a cream white, like an off-white as like your tertiary color and make like a really nice Billsmobile wagon. So that just, anyways, crossed my mind when I saw it. Looks like we have a solid, actually I think this is a blue interior, which is actually kind of great for this specific vehicle. So even though the blue is sort of clashing, it's like power clashing, which I'm into. And I think I saw in one of the other pictures that it is indeed, yeah, it looks like we have a blue interior, which is pretty cool. The blue plastic molding. It looks like your headliner's in really nice condition. A little bit funkiness going on with the wheel well here, but looks like the two-tone blue seats, which is very nice. I do love a blue interior. It seems like they were more common in the very early and then later Aerostars, like 96, 97. Again, can't see a ton in these pictures. I wish we had a little bit better pictures. $2,500, very reasonable price, only 150,000 miles, but still, I think, like, if you're just listing this briefly and you want to see if you can get a really good offer on it to be able to sell the vehicle, otherwise, or trade the vehicle, like, I just never understand. I mean, this is a nice picture, but again, all these pictures are taken at this sort of angle, so we can't really just set eyes on it and fantasize about having this vehicle. We got to crane our neck to do so. And I guess it looks like stylized, and I get that, but I don't understand why. And the pictures are all taken at different times. Like, take a half an hour, 40 minutes, like PSA here. Go out on a nice day. An overcast day is actually a perfect day to do photography because you're not going to have crazy glares and shadows. You can shoot from almost any angle. The light's very even. And just front, side, back, side. That's your first 4. Get those out of the way. Vehicle fully in frame. Nothing. No cutting off a bumper or a tail light or a wheel or anything like that. Just try to hold your hands steady and take front, side, back. And then do your 3/4 and then get maybe all your doors open, your hatch open, and then do the same thing in interior. You want a shot of any rips or tears that are going on the seat. You get behind your front seats and shoot one of like a sort of a POV shot of like the front of the vehicle with the dashboard and everything. Flip it around, do the exact same for the back of the vehicle. And then any like sort of little noteworthy details or doodads like that, you probably want to take your obligatory odometer shot, which shows the mileage to be correct that you've listed on here. It's not rocket science. Maybe get a couple close-ups to show the condition of the paint. But sometimes it astounds me that, I guess, like, if you see this vehicle, you're interested, you're in the area, and you're going to want to, stop by and see it in person. But the funny thing is, even on Marketplace, like, for a vehicle like this is kind of a niche buyer market. So, like, I've bought cars out of state all the time. I've bought Aerostars from Ohio, I bought an Aerostar in Ohio, I bought an Aerostar from Alabama, and I bought an Aerostar in Tennessee. Now, I understand I'm a crazy person that scours the internet all over the country and the world, for that matter, for Aerostars, but no matter what you're looking for, especially 90s cars, like, they're getting rare, like, or good ones are getting rare. So say I want like a first generation Saturn 2-door coupe, right? Like, there's maybe going to be one that's in decent shape around me. So I'm going to scour all around to find that perfect example that's like, whether I'm looking for low miles or no rust or a specific specification, a specific color, transmission. You on Facebook Marketplace now, you are potentially, now you have these tools like Auto Tempest where people are searching all over the entire, all of Facebook in one click, and it opens up all these tabs. Auto Tempest, if you want to, get in some sort of a sponsorship deal, I'm available. Whatever you're paying Ed Bolian, you can pay me a fraction of that. Any car that's listed on Marketplace, you have to assume that anybody might see it. And if you're trying to sell something, you never know where the right buyer may be. And yes, it's a little bit like, say you're dealing with a customer from out of state. It's like, as long as you're okay with being at a certain place at a certain time, it's up to them to really do the rest of it. And I do think, like, you might sell this van for another $500 to $1,000 if you sell it to the right buyer, versus someone who's gonna like be local and just want some work vehicle, not really care what it is, and they're just whatever, they just need a car. There's such a market now for classic 90s vehicles that you might find a really good buyer out of state. Now, normally it would be me, but in this case, we're gonna have to take a step back here. Anyways, just my thoughts on the matter. It's a nice van. It seems like it's in very good condition. And 146,000 miles, not bad. 2,500, not a bad price. The tires need balanced, so there's that. No rear seats. Some people, you could find a bench seat easy enough for these, but you're going to pay a couple $100 if you want both of them. So you got to factor that into the price if you are going to actually use it as a passenger vehicle. So interesting. Anytime we see one with custom paint on it, it's interesting. Again, in terms of is this missing a passenger mirror? No, it's got it. In terms of the execution of the theme that they were going for, I'm not the hugest fan, but it's all taste is all personal, and maybe someone wants this as is. I wonder what these decals are, if this is hand painted or vinyl, or like what exactly. This is a curious story behind this Aerostar somewhere. But anyways, a nice Aerostar, and if nothing else, it's novel and unique, so I feel like we had to feature it here and get rolling again with Year of the Aerostar. So there you have it. Ohio, generally a great state for Aerostars. One of the premier states for Aerostars. So shout out to Ohio for that reason. Okay, if we get lucky here, maybe I'll record another one. I'm kind of a free agent right now because, again, there's not a lot popping up in my neck of the woods. Now, some of that I think is wintertime. Some of that is just the fact that as soon as they go up, they get sold. So if I wait too long, they'll just be gone. But maybe I'll use that as an excuse to sort of like tool around throughout the great United States. If anyone's in a specific area particularly, I always say, message me where you are and what you're looking for, and I'll do a little perimeter around that area. And it's been a long time. I think we'll probably start doing another Mexican residency, because there's so many good Aerostars in Mexico. And now there's this, has anyone else seen this Facebook page that's like, what is it called? Like, it's not History of the Ford Aerostar or something like that, but I think they're based in Mexico because a lot of their posts are in Spanish. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean they're in Mexico, but I think because there's a huge Aerostar community in Mexico and a lot of these posts are in Spanish, I'm just making an assumption. I understand what can happen when you make assumptions. But the other funny thing I've seen is it seems like they're trying to like almost create like an aftermarket parts system too, possibly remanufacturing or creating bumpers, which would be like, I always wanted to do that and start that industry. It's just tough for me to get into it, but if someone's out there is doing it, like, boy, that it's like such a cliche in the Aerostar community that the bumpers, like, don't mess up your bumpers because they're so hard to replace and they're so hard to find and they're expensive and they're so brittle and blah blah blah. So if someone's going to actually offer aftermarket support for bumpers, that's very, very exciting, depending on how much they cost. But if they're made in Mexico, perhaps the shipping cost or the cost of production will be a little bit lower than the United States, and it'll actually be a decent like value proposition. Maybe they can export a lot of them to the US worldwide, So anyways, maybe next episode I'll dive deeper into that actual, excuse me, Facebook. I don't even know if it's a page or if it's a member of a group. I'm sorry, it's been a while since I shot a Year of the Aerostar video, so I'm just like in like update dump mode, so I apologize. This won't be the most evergreen episode. But also we have like real legitimate internet here now, which is huge. So I'm hoping that I can do some interviews of people like via Zoom or whatever, and actually get more into like the history and culture of the Aerostar. That is like a very exciting proposition for me. And I can learn from others about the finer details of the Aerostar, because I, at the end of the day, am just like an enthusiast and an amateur. And there's lots of people out there that know way more than me about the Aerostar. So I would like to pick their brain and maybe see if we can capture some of that for posterity. So there you go. This has been another episode of Year of the Aerostar here on Janky AF. We thank you so much for watching. Very good to be back. I'm wishing everyone a happy Janksgiving if you celebrate, and if you, hopefully this will reach everyone, be published before Janksgiving. I doubt we'll have 2 episodes before Janksgiving, so then maybe this will be the last episode published before Janksgiving. I like saying Janksgiving, it's fun. So happy Janksgiving to everyone out there. I am so thankful for so many things in my life, and I think the Aerostar is a perfect symbol for sort of the modesty in which we conduct ourselves, and even in so far as doing so, we can still conduct ourselves with class and dignity and purpose, and be useful to others and to serve, you know, but also to be stylish and fun and joyful in our own way too. So there you have it. Thank you again for watching. This has been Year of the Aerostar here on JKF. We'll have another one coming for you very soon. And until then, Janky do thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.